In a classic 19th century experiment, entomologist Jean-Henri Fabre placed a group of processionary caterpillars on the rim of a terracotta pot. Because these insects instinctively follow the silk thread laid down by the one in front of them, they formed a perfect continuous circle. They continued this march for 7 straight days. They circled the rim until they collapsed from exhaustion and starvation, never deviating toward the food placed only 10 centimeters away. Social scientists call this phenomenon path dependence. It describes how systems and individual lives can become trapped by their own history, where previous choices create a narrow track that makes exploring alternatives feel impossible. While it is easy to view the caterpillars as a biological quirk, human social and economic systems frequently replicate this same pattern. We often prioritize the continuity of an established path over the logic of our actual goals. Once a career or life path is established, it generates a kind of cognitive inertia. Habits and neural pathways thicken, making the current trajectory feel like the only viable option, simply because it's the one we've already started. This chart illustrates the local minimum trap. In this model, you are the line resting in that shallow dip. To reach that higher peak on the right, you would first have to navigate a steep drop, a temporary loss in safety or status that most people are unwilling to risk. Staying in this dip provides a deceptive sense of progress. As long as you are moving back and forth within the boundaries of the path, your brain interprets the effort as meaningful work toward a goal. This is high-efficiency stagnation. It is possible to become incredibly skilled at performing the routines of a path while remaining entirely locked within its circular boundaries. If a trajectory is clearly failing, the rational choice is to step off. However, the sunk cost fallacy often forces us to stay the course to justify the time and energy we've already expended. This is driven by loss aversion. Psychologically, the pain of wasting past investments feels more significant than the potential benefit of a better future, leading us to throw more resources into a failing venture. This trap occurs at every scale, including international politics. The British and French governments realized the Concorde supersonic jet would never be financially viable. Despite mathematical proof of its impending failure, they continued pouring millions into the project. Stopping would have meant admitting that the initial massive investment was a mistake, a write-off they weren't willing to accept. This logic tethers us to stagnant careers and unfulfilling relationships. We continue the march not because we believe in the destination, but because we are terrified of the emptiness that comes with stopping. Sometimes the trap is physical and structural. The QWERTY keyboard layout was designed in the 1870s to solve a specific mechanical problem. It placed common letters far apart so the typewriter's metal arms wouldn't jam. Though modern typing is digital and jam-free, this inefficient layout remains the global standard. Historical mass adoption created a lock-in effect that has lasted for over a century, long after the original mechanical need disappeared. We look to the crowd for social validation. If everyone around us is following a specific path, we assume the direction is correct, unaware that everyone else is simply following the person in front of them. This leads to groupthink, a phenomenon where the desire for conformity suppresses alternative ideas. In a group setting, individuals will often self-censor their doubts to maintain the momentum of the established consensus. We adopt societal norms and professional advice with little skepticism, following guides who are just as restricted by their own history. Breaking path dependence requires path breaking, deliberate interventions that come from outside the existing system. You cannot wait for the loop to resolve itself. You must introduce a discontinuity. The first step is to freeze the machinery. By halting the routine completely, you create the space necessary to observe the system's logic from an external perspective rather than an internal one. This allows for a search beyond the immediate path. We must actively look for desire paths, alternatives that exist just outside our current field of vision, often hidden by the focus required to stay in the dip. True autonomy involves disembedding, the difficult process of unlearning habits and ignoring the social pressure to conform. It means accepting the temporary drop in comfort required to reach a higher peak. Escaping the loop is a data-driven choice to prioritize long-term goals over the comfort of familiar routines. It is the act of shattering the cycle through deliberate divergence. The history of other people's choices should not serve as your default life map. If you are operating on a trajectory you didn't consciously choose, you are merely a passenger in someone else's path. Real progression is found in the willingness to navigate the drop. It requires consciously choosing the uncertainty of a new peak over the predictable decay of a stagnant dip. Navigation is an active process. By mapping your own route rather than following the one before you, the pressure of historical inertia begins to fade. Type diverge in the comments if you are ready to start mapping your own trajectory. Subscribe to MindUnlock to keep refining your perspective and redraw your life map.